thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to see almost a full room Monday afternoon, the week of Thanksgiving. Good for you. You guys are still here. You're still on campus. As I was parking in the parking garage over here, and I had my windows rolled up, it's a little bit cold, but one of the students was kind of zipping around there blasting Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas, which I could totally hear with my windows up and everything. So I'm feeling the Christmas spirit, probably for the first time being here on campus and being with you. I'm excited to be here. I did get my degrees in journalism, but I minored in business. Is this still amplifying? Can you hear it? Okay. I minored in business, so I spent a lot of time in this building with students who were headed to MBA school, headed to Harvard, and at times I felt a little bit intimidated because the reason I was studying business was I wanted to write about business. I wanted to work for Inc. magazine or Fortune magazine. And then as it turned out, I started a business, which I'll tell you a little bit about. So I loved being part of this school and being part of the business community here on campus and now in real life. So I would love to connect with you online. I just put my, my social media handles here. The communication world has changed a million times. I'm not even putting my email up here because I have 10,000 of those. So if you wanted to find me, this is probably the best way to do it. I thought I'd start by telling you a little bit about my story and then the things that I've learned in business that will hopefully be applicable to you. So I grew up in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Do we have any Idahoans here? My people, yeah. So I still just get so excited when I see an Idaho license plate, and I'm sure I'm going to know them, and I never know them. I only buy Idaho potatoes. I'm a very proud Idahoan. I have 5 sisters. There were 5 girls, then there was a gap, and then there was 1 more boy and a girl. We have no family pictures after those last 2 were born. Like, really? So this is me. I'm the blonde one against the brick right there. My dad was a school teacher. I took high school chemistry and physics from him. You could imagine how fun/not fun that might have been to have your dad as a high school teacher. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom with all of us kids. So as you can imagine, that math of school teacher dad, 7 children, meant that I was going to pay for school. And I knew that all along, and I was fine with it. And so one of the things that I pursued was journalism. When I was a little girl, I played journalist. I would draw the United States on a big piece of paper, and I would do the weather forecast. And I would interview people and write up little newsletters. My older sister played school, and I would make a newsletter for her school, and she became a teacher, I became a journalist, and that's just kind of how it went. In high school, I got my first job at the TV station there in Idaho Falls. They let me operate the cameras as a 15-year-old, and then I did that all through high school. And then when I went to college, and this is me here at BYU, this says Universe, the Daily Universe. The best job title I've ever had is I was the editor of the Universe. Doesn't get better than that. It's a daily newspaper back then. I learned a lot from that lab experience. I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to be a leader. Of course, I'm still working on all of these things. But this was one of my first experiences being a true leader. Upsetting some readers, having to deal with some unhappy people, having to solve some problems that way. And so I loved so much my BYU experience, both what I learned in the classroom and in labs, such as being the editor of the Universe. Then, I graduated here with my bachelor's and master's. And then what really turned me into an entrepreneur is that I worked at the LDS Church magazines, worked for the New Era, and then I was working at the Deseret News until about 12 hours before my oldest was born. I really loved my job, and I was feeling good, so I just kept going until I went into labor. And then I wasn't sure if I would go back. And then once I was a mom, which he just turned 21 last month, turned 21, his roommate Todd is here in this class. I have 2 BYU freshmen here, a 21-year-old son and an 18-year-old daughter. So when I became a mom, I was all of a sudden, my worlds were colliding. I had sort of planned to be a stay-at-home mom like my mom and like all the women that I knew, and yet I was good at school and loved my jobs and had always had a job, and so I planned on that too. And when those 2 worlds collided when I became a mom was when I had to sit back and go, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I have both loves. I have a love for this brand new baby and a desire to be a great mom, and I have a love for this industry of communications. Well, the answer for me after prayer and after temple attendance and really thinking about it was entrepreneurism. I became an entrepreneur because I became a mom. And I honestly think if for some reason I hadn't gotten married or hadn't been able to have children, I actually don't think I would have become an entrepreneur because the need wouldn't have been there for me. But because I had a strong desire to be in control of my schedule and in control of my future, while I had this darling little baby, I decided to start a business. So motherhood is what led me there. Now this is not my oldest child, this is my youngest, who's obviously the favorite. So motherhood led me to entrepreneurism. And this is my family now. We are Cougar fans. We're repping the Y. So I have 2 kids in college, 2 in junior high, and this little one in front is in 1st grade. So I have a good range of kids. We've raised a magazine company and a family all at once. So, entrepreneurism. So once I decided that that was my path, and I felt great about it, I didn't look back. I thought I knew it was what Heavenly Father had in mind for me. I knew I had the work ethic, I had a great education, I had some experience in the industry, and so it was time to go big. So we started Utah Valley Magazine, and it took a while to get that ramped up. So the first one came out in 2000. So a little over, about 18 and a half years ago, that first one came out. This is me at that time. So I was 25 years old, and if you're good at math, that you would know my age now. I'm 44. So I'll do the math for you. But that was me then. Ugly white tights, bad hair, but anyway. And this was our first issue, which I can hardly look at now. The Photoshop is not great, the typography is not great, but at the time, to have a magazine come out was so exciting for me. Being an entrepreneur is thrilling. It really is. It was like akin to the birth of my children, honestly, to birth a business like this. And our goal was that if we sold enough ads in that very first issue, we would print it. We would start the company. If we did not sell enough ads to print that first issue, we would cry in our pillows and not print it and just go on like regular people. Well, by some miracle, blessings, all of the above, hard work, we did sell enough ads. It cost $35,000 to print and mail this first issue. Printing has actually gotten a little bit cheaper, interestingly enough, and photography, because it's been digital, some of our costs have gone down. But at the time, it cost $35,000 to print this first issue. We sold $37,000 in ads, which I do count as a miracle because people were buying ads in a magazine that didn't exist. I found out later that some people were confused and thought Utah Valley magazine was for Utah Valley. It was State College at the time. So we probably sold some ads from people who were Wolverine fans, but we'll take it. What I didn't know at the time, we sold $37,000, the costs were $35,000. I'm like, we made $2,000. We're rich. What I didn't know is not everybody pays their bills, and very few people pay them the minute you invoice them. So there was a bit of a cash flow learning curve for us, because the next issue was due 6 weeks after that and 6 weeks after that. So meanwhile, we're paying our printing and postage bills, and people are not always paying us on time. So we had some things to learn for sure. But since then, we've published hundreds of magazines. These are a couple of our recent issues. Does anyone follow this family here or know what they go by? What are they called? Bucket List Family. Awesome. He was a BYU soccer player, Garrett Gee, and his wife, Jessica. This baby, according to Instagram, had not been born yet when they came in for the photo shoot. They do their whole life online. You can follow their every move on YouTube and Instagram and things. And when I contacted them, they're like, yeah, the baby's born. It's a week old. We'll come on in. And on Instagram, she was still pregnant. So little sneak peek there when they brought that darling baby in. He's also been on the cover of our business magazine because he was on Shark Tank. And anyway, he's a business guy who made $54 million selling his app and then has been traveling the world as the Bucket List Family. And Donny Osmond, who I had been trying, the very first issue, I called every famous person I could possibly think of. And everybody pretty much said no, or they don't call you back. And Donnie was one that I had contacted then. Eventually I did get him in 2001, and then we did him again. He's the only, well, actually there's 2 people who've been on Utah Valley Magazine's cover twice, Donny Osmond and Matt Holland. So that was fun to interview him. Along the way we started Business Q, so that the Q is for quarterly, and we focus on businesses here in Utah County, and I love it. People often ask what's my favorite project to work on, and Business Q is it. Because I feel like I learned so much. I get to sit at the feet of probably a lot of the speakers that you've heard this semester or in other classes. And of course I'm interviewing them for the article, but I also ask them questions about things I'm currently worried about. Personnel issues, growth issues. At times we've considered selling our magazine, so I've asked them about that. So that's been fun, and we do articles like this one was 10 Coolest Entrepreneurs. This is Travis Hansen, played basketball, and now is a really successful entrepreneur and great leader. Utah Valley Bride is one, we are known as the wedding capital of the world. I think that happens to be true. So I also feel like we're the capital of very creative weddings. And so it's been really fun to highlight real weddings. One of the things we love about what we do is that, how many of you are married in here? I'm guessing okay, maybe half-ish or so. So if you go by a national magazine and they give you a timeline, how long do they tell you you need to plan a wedding? A national magazine. Years, year and a half, okay, good. Does that work here? Have you met the person a year in advance? Maybe not, okay? So one of the things that we cover is really how to plan a wedding in 2 months, because that can be done and is done. So we're a very different magazine that way, and we feature a lot of real weddings. In addition to these 3 titles, Utah Valley Magazine Business Q and Utah Valley Bride, we do a lot of custom publishing, meaning companies hire us to produce a magazine for them. We don't necessarily own it. It's a contract job that we have for them. For example, BYU Idaho hires us to do their magazine. So we do that for them. We do a lot for the network marketing industry. So multi-level, direct sales, that has a few different names, but that industry, New Skin, LifeVantage, Isogenics, those types of companies, we do magazines for them. Another vertical that we are growing right now is our home builders vertical. So how many of you have attended a parade of homes where you put on the booties and you go through houses you really wish you could live in? Cool, okay? So when you go to an event like that around the state, most likely we produce that magazine that they hand you that has all the floor plans, and we also do them out of state as well. So those are the ways that we have grown our company the past few years. So now I want to tell you things that I have learned. You'll learn a little bit more about my industry, but also things that I have learned along the way. I feel like one of the keys to my success, and by no means do I think I've conquered everything, but one of the things that I think that I've done well is that I've been curious. I've wanted to learn from people. I love to ask questions, and then I try to apply them in my life. So that is why I've formatted this today. The first is creating a vision for your life. The CEOs that I interview, the successful athletes, musicians, all these different variety of people that I've interviewed, they have created a vision. Life didn't just happen to them. They didn't just luck into this. They didn't just happen to show up and win the Olympics. Like, they have a vision. They have a plan. And they not only have the end goal in mind, but then they plan the path to that vision. And one of the great examples of that this year, we did a cover story on Lindsay Sterling. Now, she has more YouTube subscribers than like Justin Timberlake and OneRepublic, and like, she is a big deal on YouTube. BYU grad. She studied film here and also recreation management. So she is a dancing violinist. Now, how many dancing violinists are there in the world? Is that a pretty big genre? No, she created this genre. It did not exist. And yet she had a vision for that from a young age. She loved music, but she got really bored with her teachers that were teaching her how to play black notes on a white page with exactness. And she did that to a point, and then she's like, I want to jam. And she had a different vision for her life. She went on a mission to New York, and at the time she thought music was just a hobby, I'm going to be done with it. And actually on her mission she had experiences where she felt like, no, actually this is part of the vision of my life. I need to use music to help continue to spread the light. And so when she came back from her mission, she had that in mind and started pursuing that with more vigor. And now she has created a wonderful career for herself. I wanted to share with you, this is part of my interview with her that I think is powerful. There's no way I was smart enough to have figured this really interesting course out myself, make the perfect steps to get where I'm at today. It was a 1 in a million chance. I know it's because my Heavenly Father has guided and directed my steps and sent angels to help me. Her dad passed away, I think now it's been a couple of years, and she considers him and her grandmother angels that truly have helped her, and she shared some experiences with that. I knelt down and I prayed, and I told my Heavenly Father I was going to dedicate myself to being a light, that I was going to do everything I could to try my best. I have tried my best to stay true to that promise. In return, I told him, take me wherever you want me to go. I will stay true to the things I've promised you. He's blessed me 1,000-fold for that. I know the Lord keeps his promises. He'll guide our steps. Maybe not to where we see ourselves being, because I couldn't have seen this, but he'll guide us to where we're supposed to be. Now keep in mind, she's giving this interview to me. I'm not the Inside Magazine. This was not going on a general conference video or anything like that. This is truly how she talks. If you want to hear more about her, she did a podcast with Andy Grammer recently where she basically tells him a lot of the same things that she told me. She's very open about her vision for her life and her partnership with God in that vision for her life. And she's probably the best example I've interviewed of someone who like really, really created a vision and then like is going to happen. In fact, she said, once you decide what you're going to do, the worry's over, because then you just march forward on that path and it happens for you. Another thing I love from her interview, and I've used this, so I'm going to challenge you guys to all use this strategy as well. When she was on Dancing with the Stars, which she ended up taking second in, she was also preparing for a tour. Now, most people who do Dancing with the Stars, life goes on hold. They practice 16 hours a day. It's all about that and the media for that. And she was trying to accomplish that and also prepare for a tour, which started directly after. So all the rehearsals and costume fittings and recordings for that. And so she would often just be, it's impossible. I need this, I need that, I need more hours in the day. How many of us have thought that? She would kneel down and she would say, Heavenly Father, I have got 4 hours to practice. I need it to be worth 10 hours. Please make this 4 hours worth 10. And she would ask with such faith that she said it would happen. She would also say that if she only had, say, 5 hours to sleep, but she wanted to wake up as if she had slept 8 or 10 or 12, she would ask that really specific prayer as well. I can only sleep this many hours. I'd like to wake up refreshed as if I slept 10. And then with faith, those things would happen to her. So I challenge you to have a specific prayer like that. When you're needing something, when you're doing all you can, but yet you want to take your faith to the Lord and see what He can do with your life. Okay, use your words to build. I'm a word person. I love words. Oftentimes when people tell me their name, I want them to spell it for me because I see it. I like letters. I like words. All of us, whether you're a wordie or you're a foodie or you're a math person, whatever it is, words are very, very powerful. When I was in third grade, I had a substitute teacher, okay? And she gave us an assignment that no one really understood. And so everyone was complaining about it. And somehow I figured out what she was trying to get us to do. And I quietly kind of went up to her desk and said, I figured this out, is this right? And she said, yes. And she said, Jeanette, you are so ambitious. I didn't know what that word meant. No one had ever called me that before. So then I went to the classroom dictionary, which you guys don't know what those are. Huge books that you crack open and you find the A's, ambitious. And I read what it meant, and I got a huge smile on my face. And I took the dictionary over to her, and I showed her that I had found it. And she, again, was so proud of me. Well, that word stuck in my head. She was a substitute teacher. I can't even tell you her name, and I wish that I knew it because I would like to thank her. I actually had forgotten about this story till this year. I've had a really interesting year where 2 other times I've been called ambitious, and it's reminded me of that 3rd grade substitute teacher and how she planted that idea in my head. So this year I was awarded the top woman entrepreneur in media in New York, which was a huge honor, big highlight for me. Martha Stewart got the Lifetime Achievement Award. We gave back-to-back speeches. And when they were introducing me to give my award, they called me ambitious. And all of a sudden I had that flashback to someone who put that word in my brain, and it had come true. I also spoke at UVU's MBA graduation this year and got an award. And when they were introducing me, they again used the word ambitious. I don't know if either of these things would have happened if someone hadn't believed in me as a 3rd grader and used that word, and because I looked it up in the dictionary and had that visual. I want to challenge each of you to be that person to someone else, to your peers, to your siblings. Be that person who uses your words to build. And when people use words to build you, thank them. Thank them. Keep track of those things. Believe them when they tell you good things. All right, another example of this. So we do 40 under 40 as part of our business magazine. A lot of business magazines do that. It's kind of fun. We identify 40 people who have not yet turned 40. I always get requests to do like 60 over 60 or something like that, which maybe we'll do at some point. This last time when we did 40 under 40, we had each of the people take the color code test. How many of you are familiar with that? Okay, if you know your color, how many of you are red? Okay, yellow? Awesome, blue? And white. Okay, so what we found is that the #1 color of entrepreneurs, and it's not a scientific survey, your stats teacher would not think this was a cool discussion, but anyway, of the 40 people that we interviewed, red was the #1 color. Yellow was a very close second. In this very unscientific survey, we found that these entrepreneurs tended to be leaders, yellow people are risk takers and fun, blue are more emotional, and white tend to be more amiable, a little more passive. We had very few whites in this. I think we had 2 out of the 40 that were white. Just a little caution for those of us who are reds, and I'm a red too, is that we tend to be really efficient. And sometimes when we're efficient, our words, even though they might be very efficient, might not be as kind or as slow or as patient with people as they need to be. So along with this lesson of using your words wisely, just keep that in mind as you're a leader. Okay, fight the 2018 plague. which to me the plague, and I've got it too, we probably all have it, we have a device in our hands and in our fingertips at all times. This is a magazine we did for one of the network marketing companies. These are 5 Winter Olympians. They all have gold medals. By some miracle, I got them in the same room in Orem, Utah for like 5 hours. We took group photos. We took individual photos. We did all the interviews. And if you've seen Miracle on Ice, which I know is an older movie now, but the 1980 Olympics, we beat the Russians. It was super exciting. This is Micah Ruzioni, who was the goalie. Nadia Comaneci got the first 10 in gymnastics. These people are famous. Your parents and grandparents would be very impressed. I know that they're not super familiar to you. During those multiple hours I had these Olympians there, they did not take out their phones. I was actually amazed and a little bit embarrassed because I kept trying to get my phone out to check my email and see who was texting me. They didn't do that. And I think there's a connection there. When they were in the gym or the rink, they were in the gym or the rink. When they were with me, they were with me. It was that focus that enabled them to get to the top of their sport, to get to the top of their game. And if we want to compete in business, in life, in whatever field you're studying, we've got to focus. And that plague of constant distraction takes us down. We have to set up boundaries for ourselves. There's different ways to do it. But I just encourage you to figure out how to fight that in your life. There's a recent study that showed that parents will notice that their phone is missing before they'll notice that their kid is missing. Okay? It sounds crazy, but I probably would be one of those people. Because we always seem to know where our phone is and if it's charged. So fight that. All right, learn the rules, forget the rules, play your game. When you are here in school, you're learning the rules, right? When you're taking business classes, you're learning what those rules are. What are the parameters? What does success look like? What does profit loss statements look like? What are all these terms? When you're out in real life, sometimes you change the rules. And that's one thing that I've really enjoyed studying and learning about. I have a little video I'm hoping to show you, if it'll work. So recently, for our business magazine, I had Josh James, who started Omniture, sold it to Adobe for $1.8 billion, and now he's the CEO of Domo. Successful guy, obviously. And Andrew Smith, he started a tech company, sold that, and now he owns 4 Foods Group, which owns Kneaders, Swig, Little Caesars, R&R Barbecue. Anyway, he's growing restaurant chains around the country. So they're both like highly successful, out-of-the-box thinkers. I would imagine maybe they've been here to speak. I know at least Josh went to school here. So recently, for this issue we did, it had a theme of mind your business, and we were doing a game theme. So in the photo shoot with these two, I handed them both a Rubik's Cube, asked them to mess it up, exchange them, and whoever got a side figured out first was the winner. Okay? So I want to see if this will work, if you can see how they played this game. Okay, so there's a little preview. They're holding the Rubik's Cube. All right, so they have handed each other. So Josh is breaking his. He found one off the set, a third one that I had. Okay. Beep. Okay. Anyway, those guys, I had not anticipated that. I had a pile of Rubik's Cubes because we had used them. Bounce that. For the photo shoot. When I said to Josh, he just completely abandoned the rules. First he was going to break it and then try and pop it back together. I actually have that broken Rubik's Cube on my desk because to me it represents just unusual thinking. I did not expect that at all, but that was the way he came up with it. So learn the rules, later figure out your own version of them. Connect and document. All right. So I'm a journalist. I think this is really important. Some people tell me that I take selfies all the time, and I do. I think they're important. This was at a recent event at UVU. But I have had good luck with taking photos of events and using it as a way to connect with people that helps build my network. Every March, I attend the United Nations, the Commission on the Status of Women. And I go back there. It's not really connected to my business, but I go back there. It's a passion project for me to share my views on womanhood and entrepreneurism, to meet other women from around the world. It's not a very pro-family environment, and so I like to be able to show them you can actually be successful and have a family at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. There's a lot of idea back there that in order for women to succeed and be equal to men, we need to not get married, not have children. It's kind of pro-abortion environment, etc. So I go back there and offer a different view. Anyway, at a recent event, this was a year and a half ago, I was there at the UN. I sat by these women who I had never met. We all just sat down on a bench together at this event. And as the session went on, the woman on the far left, her name's Veronica, she was getting agitated. She's from Sweden, and she was saying, oh, that's not how I see it, and whatever. So I said to her, you should go up there. You should go up there, and there's a mic there. You could complain. You could tell me what you think. So she did. She walked up there, and she gave her view on what was being said. And while she was up there, I took a picture of her at the microphone. And she came back, and I showed it to her. I said, I'll email it to you. And so we exchanged that. Then the woman in the orange, Saida, she also got up. And again, I took a picture of her and exchanged it with her. People like pictures of themselves, just so you know. That's like an easy service project to do for people. So when the session ended, we got talking and we exchanged our names and everything, and we said, isn't that just awesome? That we encouraged each other to do something hard, and then we celebrated and documented it. So we stood up and took this picture. And I posted it on Facebook and tagged these two women. The end. Except 2 months later, Saida, in the orange scarf, became the president of the National Council of Women, which is the organization that Susan B. Anthony founded back when women were fighting for the right to vote. The LDS Church was largely involved with them for a number of years, and had, since the 70s, has not been involved with them. And because I had become friends with Saida, taken this picture, posted this picture, we had stayed in contact, and she has asked me to be like the Utah delegate for this National Council of Women. That never would have happened if I hadn't taken a picture. I really encourage you to not only take pictures, post them, document. When you meet people, get their names. Find them on LinkedIn, whatever platform you prefer to use, Twitter. Because if you don't, some of those connections will be lost, and they could prove to be very valuable to you. I think it's a mistake to not get involved in social media and the other platforms that help you network, especially at this time in your life when your network will be so, so powerful. Just last Friday, I was doing some mentoring with some Utah State students, and one of the other women on the panel with me was Corinne Clark, who is a well-known CEO of tech companies, currently with Banyan, was with Marriott CX and Altiris before that. Really, really powerful woman, probably the most powerful woman in tech in Utah right now. And what she told the girls was that when she hires people, she's looking for people who are humble, hungry, and smart about people. That's what she cares about, those three things. Humble, hungry, and smart about people. I will tell you that as a woman in the business world, and especially in this community, it has kept me humble, especially because I've been trying to do this while raising a family. And here's me with one of my babies. This is kind of how my life has looked a lot of the time. One hand doing one thing, one hand on the other. Things that may not be perfect in our lives keep us humble. If you don't have the perfect pedigree, if you don't have a huge bank account, if you drive a clunker or a scooter or you walk, it keeps you humble. And those things will be the traits that will help get you jobs. When I wanted to interview Ann Romney, this was a handful of years ago, actually it was 10 years ago, because they were running for president the first time. And it took a lot of effort to get this interview. Famous people don't just like post their cell phones online. It's not really easy to find famous people. They try and keep things private. So it took a long time to get this interview. When I showed up for the interview, on the way to it, I flew to Southern California to interview her. I had been making a list of all the things I still had to do for youth conference the next day. I was a young woman president, so I was like, okay, first aid kits, permission slips, call this guy, you know. And when I arrived at the photo shoot, I went to flip that page because I was like, oh, that's not professional. I don't want Ann to see that top page. And she said, oh, youth conference? I love youth conference. So we ended up talking for like a half an hour about youth conference, which broke the ice. It brought me down to that humble point of like, we have this in common. Instead of me pretending that I am just this ultimate professional, me just being real, me being myself is what connected me to her. And we had a great interview. They ended up using our photos from this photo shoot for campaign buttons, which was fun. And then just earlier this year, when she wanted to do an event at Thanksgiving Point, she was calling me. See how the tables turn? And she wanted me to host her, and it was the day before the primary, so she was encouraging women to get out to vote, and especially to vote for, of course, men. Be a cheerleader and be around cheerleaders. I think this is very important. This is one of my favorite scriptures from Alma. For that which you do send out shall return unto you again and be restored. To me, this is karma. This is whatever you send out, whatever goodness, kindness, positivity, whatever it is, it'll come back to you. Same with negativity, criticism, all of those things come back to you as well. And so you want to be that person who is happy for your roommate when they get the internship that maybe you would have wanted. You want to be happy for your siblings when maybe they got a better GPA than you, even though you feel like you worked harder. You want to be that cheerleader. You want to send out those good vibes. I testify that this is a true principle. You want to be a cheerleader, and you want to appreciate the cheerleaders around you. And most of the people I've interviewed will tell me about their cheerleaders. This is one of my favorite stories of that. This is Neon Trees. And on the far left, Tyler Glenn. When I was interviewing him, he said, and I love this was probably my most memorable part of the interview, so he said that when anything cool happened to the band, like when their first song was on the radio, or when their song hit #1 for the first time, everyone in the band wanted to call his mom because she made it the coolest thing that had ever happened. She would get so excited and scream and just be thrilled for them. And they all craved that cheerleader in their lives. Isn't that awesome? Don't you want to be that type of person? Kalani and Timberly, I was one of their first interviews when they came to Provo to coach the Cougars. And they were telling me the process of him getting hired. Now, he was in Oregon, had a job there. It was, if you followed the coach search at that time, they were considering a lot of different people. He probably wasn't at the top of the list if you were to poll Cougar fans. There were other people that were getting maybe more press. But he did get an interview. They were flying, BYU was flying to Oregon to interview him. And he was saying to his wife, oh, they're flying here, but they want me to meet them right by the airport. To me, that means they're just barely going to hop off the plane and say, hey, yeah, you're not who we wanted. Get back on the plane and go back. Timberly, being the cheerleader that I'm telling you we need in our lives, said, you are going to get this job. You are amazing. They're going to believe you. They're going to believe in you like I believe in you. This is going to happen. And because her belief was so strong, it added to his belief. And they did fly in. They didn't interview him by the airport, but then they ultimately hired him. And whether you are a fan of the team or not, he is an excellent human being. He is fun, he's warm, he's very kind, and I think they've done a lot for our community here. And it was awesome to interview him and his wife, Timberly. Little side note behind the scenes of this interview. So this was outside their home on a Saturday night. That was the time that worked for them. We had their kids in some earlier photos, and then their little boy ran in the front door, came back out, locked the door. They were locked out of their house. So the photo shoot ended with all of us, photographers, all these people, trying to help break into their house with them. So it's kind of a memorable ending. All right, be excellent. This is a tip, I was going to say especially for women, but really it's for all of you. Throughout your life, throughout your career, you will have times where you want some flexibility. Maybe you want to work different hours. Maybe you want a couple months off to be on the Amazing Race. Maybe you want to have a baby and you want some flex time, or you want 6 months off. Maybe one of those things, maybe many of those things will happen to you. Let me tell you about being excellent. I have employed hundreds of people in the 2 decades that I've owned this business. And many of them through the years have come and said, hey, Jeanette, I need to talk. I thought I was going to come back after I had my baby. The reality is I only want to work part-time. I only want to write 1 story a week. I only, whatever it might be. I need 6 months off. If that person is excellent, if I can't live without him, then I bend over backwards to do whatever works for them. If they are mediocre, I pretty much have to say no. If they're replaceable, then doing something that makes my life harder isn't always going to work for the company. But if you're excellent, you will have doors open to you. This was a recent staff photo that we took, and the reason that I brought this in, that it's memorable to me, is that Bree Stewart, she's here on my side there in the black. She's between me and my husband. I'm not quite sure why we did it that way. But anyway, she's been with me since she was a BYU intern. She interned with me, hired her full-time. A couple years later, she got married. A couple years later, she became a mom. She now has 4 kids. And she brought her 2 kids, and they're in the reflection. Do you see the 2 kids here in the reflection? We didn't notice that because I grant her whatever she wishes because she is the best writer in the world, I think. She's really phenomenal. And so when she brings her kids or works from home, I am completely accommodating. And when I saw that they were in that picture, I was like, I like it. It ran in the magazine this way. We're not photoshopping that out. I love that they're in that photo because to me it represents Bree living her dream of trying to combine her work life and her family life. And when my kids were little, they were at the office a lot too. When you're excellent, you have more options. Be excellent. Be the kid, be the student in your group project who does more than everyone else and doesn't complain. Be that person. Practice being that person. Being positive. Now, of course, this is nothing new. Everyone will tell you this. Anyone who's successful will tell you that. I'm just here to tell you, yep, it's cliche, but it's extremely true. I'm going to kind of go quickly through these stories, but that's Hillary Weeks. She has a big message on positivity. If you're interested, you could Google her. I do an article every year about high school students who will change the world. It's a really big title. It's really kind of a vague title. It's not the 18 high schoolers with the highest ACT score, because I don't think that's the only way to change the world. Do you guys? It's not the only way. It's not the 18 student body presidents, because I don't think that's the only way to change the world. It's not the 18 state champs. I purposely want a variety of students in the article. I do one from each high school in the Valley, and I have a variety. I have students who've overcome cancer. I have students who are band presidents, and I do have athletes, and I have had perfect ACT score people in there. And the thing that's interesting to me is that when they come in for the photo shoot and the interview, they bring a different vibe. You know, you have the athlete coming in like, hey, I know you've been waiting for me all day, here I am. And then you have maybe the tuba player who walks in with his mom because he's nervous, and he walks in and there's not as much confidence there. There's a big variety. And when I interview them, I get different answers, except when I ask them to tell me what they love about their school. And then without fail, every student I've interviewed for now 18 years tells me that they love their school and that they go to the best school in the Valley. There's no cliques. The teachers are awesome. There's a great school spirit. They all feel like they go to the best school. Now, is it possible that every school in the Valley is the best? Not on paper. You know, if we were to do a chart of graduation rates, ACT scores, facilities, you know, all these types of things, they would not be the same. There is a range. But when you think you're in the best situation possible, that is when you will lead. That is when you will make a difference in life. Positivity is huge. So I encourage you to feel like you go to the best school. Don't be looking over your shoulder going, I wish I was at the U. Just don't do that. Know that you're at the best school. Know that you're in a great apartment. You're in a great student ward. You're in a great field of study. You have a great family. Look for the good in what you have in your life. Especially this week of Thanksgiving. I challenge you to focus on that. One more story I think we have time for. Okay, look at setbacks as opportunities. Now, I have had some sad days. I have made some blunders, and I'm about to tell you about my biggest professional mistake. And the only reason I can tell you this without crying is that time has passed. Because this was a really painful one for me. So just to set the stage, every July we do our women's issue. I always do a woman on the cover, we feature women inside, and as part of my editor's letter for that issue, I usually include a picture of the women on my staff. Other issues is just kind of me, and this one I want to showcase the other women that are my coworkers. Now, because it's easy and we all have black, I would usually tell everyone, let's just wear black tomorrow when we take our photo as women on the staff. Well, we end up looking like a hair salon every year. So this particular year, I said, let's all wear bright colors. Let's all wear bright colors, and that way we'll blend. We won't match, but we'll all be in bright colors. Another thing you need to know is that I like wordplay, so I told you I was a wordie. So when I write headlines, I'm often trying to twist cliches around. Like Lindsay Sterling was dancing clean, and the Satakis were rise and rout. You know, I'm always playing. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Okay, so now that I've told you about the photo and I tell you how I like words, I want you to look at this headline and see if you can tell what went wrong. Horrible headline. I wrote it. I'm here to admit it. I was being playful, I thought. And of course, this is not a story about anything to do with race at all. I was just playing with the color. The subhead is Our Bright Staff Adds Hues and Happiness to Holiday Life, or Office Life, sorry. It was not received well, as you can imagine. And as much as I wanted to go to every mailbox in the county and pull every magazine out and rip this page out, that is impossible. Immediately, I started getting hate mail of all digital variety. The Tribune wrote an article. Every TV station in Salt Lake did. The Gawker, which is now out of business, but they were an online tabloid that had millions of followers. They wrote about it, HuffPost. I felt like everyone in America was making fun of me, and I deserved it. And I felt absolutely horrible about it. Well, and I decided, as someone in the communications world, I'm not just going to hide in my closet, although I wanted to. I'm going to own up to it. I'm going to reach out and see what I can learn from this. And so my very next issue, I interviewed a number of people, including Mia Love, and other people of ethnic diversity, religious diversity, and I asked them, I said, what are things that maybe I have done or written and other people have said and done in this community that have been hurtful? Teach us. Because I thought, if someone's going to talk about this at my funeral, the worst headline I ever wrote, I at least want the second part of that story to be, she tried to fix it. She tried to learn. And so I did a whole issue about this, and I did learn. I did learn why that was hurtful to them. And I don't believe I've made a racial mistake again with my words, because that was a painful lesson for me. Here's the thing. After this issue came out, I got a call from Huffington Post. They were starting a new show called HuffPost Live. They wanted me to come on as a guest and talk about MIT and Mormonism. And I said, I would love to, but I'm just curious why you picked me, because I'm really not in politics. And they said, well, we just Googled around, we found your name. And I said, what did you Google? And they said, controversial Mormon woman, because of my headline. That's how they found me. Well, what happened was I was then on HuffPost Live. I was a regular guest, regular contributor for over 50 shows. And in many of those, I talked about our religion. In this one, people could comment live, of course, and so I'm on there. This person says, the guest from Utah is single-handedly changing my opinion of the whole state. I screenshotted that because I thought, it's interesting. Of course, I don't know what he thought about the state beforehand. But I'm assuming he had a negative opinion of the state, and perhaps I showed him that we are kind, that we are happy, that we have a brightness and a lightness and an excitement about life. So what I thought was my worst moment, and I still think it was my worst moment, that headline, it turned into an opportunity for me. When something goes wrong in your life, don't dwell on it, see what you can learn from it. I promise you, you'll probably be standing here someday telling the story of how that turned into something wonderful. I know it is time to go, and you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Let me just end by saying, I am excited for you. Create a vision for your life, own your plan, march forward with confidence. You know and have all the resources you need at your fingertips, and I hope I get to write about each of you someday in my magazine. So, all right, thank you so much. Good luck.